Hello everybody, welcome back to my survival shenanigans, where today we're going to be dealing with a problem that we ran into last time. And it wasn't the first time we ran into that problem, we ran into it when we were doing the balloon patrol as well, and that problem is a lack of wool. So we're going to be building a sheep farm. Now, I sort of had two ideas for a sheep farm. It was either going to be like a big open field where you would have packs of colored sheep roaming around and we can jump in with shears and shear whatever we need, or, and this is what I ended up going with, a fully automatic sheep farm. Now, I was a little bit worried that the wolf I tamed the last time when I was doing the field actually went around and killed all the sheep, which is what wolves normally do, but luckily there were 3 sheep on a hill right next to the mill. So I immediately wrangled them up and started breeding them from the very start, because in the end we were gonna need 16 sheep, one for each color. Now, since the farm is only gonna have one of each colored sheep, it's not necessarily gonna be super fast, so if you need like 10 shulker boxes of red wool for some reason, we're gonna have to get it another way. The reason I like this farm is the same reason why I like the iron farm that we did early on. It's not super duper fast, but as long as it's loaded and filled with shears, it's constantly going to be generating wool. The way the farm works is extremely straightforward. I don't think it can get any simpler than this outside of you just shearing the sheep yourself. So from the bottom up, we have one chest, or you can even do a double chest, for each color of wool that has a hopper leading into it. We then put a rail on top of that hopper and place a hopper minecart on that rail. And finally we put a grass block on top of the hopper minecart. Now, since the hopper minecart is sitting on a rail, it is a little bit taller than a normal hopper and it will be able to pick up the wool through the grass block. So that's how the wool gets collected. Now, the way it gets sheared is very straightforward as well. We have an observer pointing into the grass block that the sheep is standing on top of. Whenever the sheep eats the grass from the block, which is how they regrow their wool, it will turn into a dirt block, which will trigger a block update through the observer, which will then send a signal to a block behind it that has a piece of redstone sitting on top of it. And then all that's left to do is simply point a dispenser in the direction of the sheep and fill it with shears, so that whenever the sheep eats the grass to regrow its wool, it will activate the dispenser, which will instantly shear it, and the wool will be picked up by the minecart hopper. Now, originally I also had a set of hoppers going into the dispensers because I thought I would be running a line of hoppers over top them to make it easier to refill the shears, but unfortunately the gaps at the bottom of the hopper meant that we were actually losing some wool because it was landing on top of the dispenser and it wasn't being picked up by the minecart hopper. Also, it is very important that you have grass surrounding the block where the sheep will be, so the grass can regrow as fast as possible, which is why the entire contraption is made out of grass and glass. It's also why I added so much glowstone, just so that it's bright enough for the grass to spread at any time. And that's pretty much it as far as the sheep shearing contraption goes. Now, at this point I kind of made a mistake and I filled the dispensers with shears because I didn't actually realize that you can't recolor sheep when they're sheared. So I wasted a bit of time because I then had to remove the shears and wait for the sheep to regrow their wool so I would be able to recolor them. So if you're building something like this yourself, put the shears in at the end. Now, at this point I also started working on the interior a little bit and I wanted it to be very sort of basic, so I went with spruce planks at the bottom, some spruce logs on the side, and somewhat minimal detail because it's a farm. I want to be able to easily go in, pick up the wool I need, and then get out again. I did do a little bit of detailing, but nothing too over the top. I added a staircase so that it's easier to get in and out. I threw some dirt into the floor because I imagined this area being somewhat dirty, and I threw in a few hay bales as well. Now, why hay bales? Well, because the building I decided to build around this is a barn. I kind of debated with myself whether I wanted this to be a normal house, which I thought in the end would look a bit weird so close to the mill. Then I thought maybe I could do a granary, which was actually suggested in the comments of the previous video, but I thought that would look a bit weird on this scale. So in the end I just went with a barn. Now, when I say barn, I bet you imagine a big wooden building that's red and white. And while I did want to go heavy on the wood side of things, I did not want to go red and white. I instead wanted to go with like a mix of different wood types, those being the dark oak and spruce, which is sort of the standard around the kingdom, but also some regular oak as well. And this time around I actually didn't do anything in creative mode beforehand. This was all done in survival on the fly. Now, eventually I finally got enough sheep to fill in the farm, and I made a bit of a mistake because I didn't know that sheep would actually climb scaffolding on their own. So I placed down some scaffolding and all the sheep, with the exception of one ran away, so I had to wrangle them up again. Though luckily the AI was on my side, because in Minecraft, once mobs get a certain distance away from you, their AI will turn off, which is why hostile mob farms are usually made with either a flashing mechanism or with the use of like cats and wolves and turtle eggs to move the mobs around. Now, while I'm wrangling up the sheep, let's talk about this series a little bit, because well, it moved from the main channel to the second channel, and some people were worried that the series was just gonna end here, and that's not the case, but we will have to go down to one episode a week, which is gonna be on a Sunday, because as you may have noticed, this video is a bit shorter than the other ones. And it's just because I don't have enough time to do Warframe on the main channel 3 times a week, then do Minecraft on this channel twice a week, and also exist at least a little bit as a normal human being outside of YouTube. So I decided to cut it down to 1 video a week, which doesn't necessarily mean no less content. It's essentially just gonna be the same amount of content in 1 video instead of unnecessarily stretched out into 2. So I hope you understand, though I imagine you would much rather have 1 jam-packed episode that I consider to be good rather than 2 mediocre episodes where not much happens. But anyway, eventually I was able to wrangle up all the sheep, I got them into their shearing chambers, I colored them appropriately, and I kind of organized them so, you know, there's like a gradient going on throughout the entire thing, and the farm was pretty much done. And with that, it was time to start working on the outside of the building. Now, as I've said already, I did no prep in creative mode, so I had no idea what I was gonna do or how it was gonna look, so I was just freehanding it, though I did have a general idea of what I wanted to have for the block palette, and I also knew that I wanted to make sure that the building was not flat. Because even though in real life barns are generally very flat, flat buildings just look bad in Minecraft. So that ended up being kind of like thing number 1 for me. Use whatever I can, slabs, stairs, fences, fence gates, trapdoors, doors to break up any flat surfaces, because I wasn't too concerned about the design of the barn, because well, it's a barn. It will end up looking like a barn. The only things that can go wrong either are the color palette is going to be horrid, which this one is nice, it's a blend of wood, or the building is going to be flat. So I went around and just added stuff all over the place. I even went through and added more logs on the sides, and this actually provided so much detail in the end, I didn't have to detail it at all because it was all already there. And I must say, for a building that was just built freehand with no prep whatsoever, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out in the end. Now, as far as the roof was concerned, which is what usually gives me the most trouble, I ended up going with cobblestone that's aligned with the dark oak. And I didn't even think about it twice. I was just like, cobblestone? Cobblestone. Yeah, let's go with cobblestone. And let's align it with the dark oak, which we're not using too much on the building, and I think it's going to be a nice contrast. And I think it ended up looking really good, mainly because, well, the building is made out of wood mostly, so having some nice contrast in the roof is always good. But I also think it works because of the location, right? It's right next to a hill, which is made mostly out of dirt, so that bright cobblestone really stands out, and it just has this really nice feel to it. It might even be like too cozy for a barn, I don't know. I really like the way this turned out. It just looks so nice. And it looks completely different to anything else we've done in the kingdom so far, which I think is good, right? It's a barn, it's gonna look different, but man, it looks cozy. It just looks cozy. It's a bit odd. Now, I wanted the roof to be a little bit taller in the middle, which is usually what you see on barns. I think it has something to do with ventilation or something like that. I don't know. I've never worked on a farm. So I added 1 extra block to the center section, and then I simply finished the roof. I thought about doing stairs up there so there would be more of a peak to it, but I decided against it because I thought it would look odd. And that was pretty much it for the building itself, or at least the outside shell. There was still some detailing to be done, which is what I did next. Now, I wanted the front of the barn to be somewhat open, but not fully open. I didn't want it to just be supports with nothing else, because I felt that when the barn was completely open, you could see too much of the sheep farm, and it was looking a bit odd from the outside. I also ended up doing a bit of a path around the barn, and I put down some hay bales on the outside, as well as some composters and some chests and some barrels and stuff like that. Though we're still missing a pretty major feature of this area, which is going to be a crane that's going to be moving the wheat from the farm level down to the barn, which is how I decided that we're going to be moving stuff around. There's going to be a crane on the hill on the left so that when there is too much wheat and they can't mill it all, they store it in the barn. There's also going to be either like a staircase or maybe even like a steampunky elevator that will take people up and down, because I don't think I will connect the barn to the rest of the kingdom. It's only going to be accessible from the field. And that is pretty much all I had time for this time around. So one last trip to the castle to pick up some leaves and some bushes to spread them around to sort of tie it all together, because you know the entire kingdom is nice and overgrown, so of course the barn is going to be nice and overgrown as well. And as always guys, I thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about the barn in the comment section down below, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye bye.